We got word 2 days ago that Jack Kerner, starting safety, is declaring, which I'm not totally surprised by that. A little bit disappointed. I think he could benefit from another year, but I'm not surprised anymore when kids leave early, regardless of draft stock. We saw Tyler Goodson declare early before the bowl game, opted out of the bowl, and I think he might get drafted, but it's not a lock at this point. Guys are just going to do that now. And about a year ago, when the NCAA announced they would be allowing student athletes to stay for an extra year, I kind of assumed in my head, well, then that means Iowa's going to get everybody back. And then I realized, oh, wait, that's not how it works. And so we're starting to see that with guys like Kerner and guys like Moss. Not everybody's going to take advantage of that. And sometimes, as great as I would think it would be for these kids to be able to get an extra year in college, their clocks are ticking. They understand with football being the sport that it is, you only have a number of years to cash in those checks. And so I wish the best for Jack Kerner. I think he's probably got a good shot at getting drafted. He's undersized, but let's be honest, Iowa's had some safeties over the years that have made it who are undersized. Bob Sanders being the first one that comes to mind. Certainly Geno Stone is playing well right now for Baltimore. Amani Hooker wasn't quite as undersized as Kerner is, but they've had success stories at that position, no doubt about it. So I wish him the best. We're still waiting on decisions from guys like Linderbaum. I think it's many people feel like it's a foregone conclusion that he's leaving. I still want to hear it from his mouth or from his Twitter account, so to speak. And there's a few others as well. But overall, the Citrus Bowl was what I expected, and unfortunately, Iowa just couldn't get that last stop. We can talk about the decision to go for it on 4th and 1. I know Don and I talked about it on Saturday. You just watched the fourth quarter back. What were your thoughts?
Before we do continue with the Citrus Bowl, I'm just curious because you had made a comment about these NFL draft eligible players, Kerner and Goodson in particular. So you think those decisions have more to do with their own kind of taking inventory of the wear and tear versus either believing that they're going to be selected relatively high or that they're looking at their positional group and seeing some competition there? You think it has there's something else there?
Well, Kerner could be the competition issue because let's remember Iowa's bringing in Xavier Wampa, a 5-star safety, and he's enrolling early. So I could see him playing. That's why I don't think I like Jack Kerner. He's one of the best open field tacklers Iowa's had at that position. Really good, solid player for Iowa these last few years. But I could see that being an issue. I think Tyler Goodson's decision, I would just think, possibly weighing how the offensive line really didn't get much better throughout the year, that might have played a factor. But I think for a running back, especially, regardless of his draft stock, he may look at it and say, I don't see myself just physically being able to go up the draft boards much better than 5th or 6th round. And again, we know the short life of NFL backs. So I don't know what Riley Moss's decision was based off of. These guys are obviously getting feedback. They're having agents talk to them, which is probably not the feedback you want to listen to, but they're getting feedback from coaches and whatnot. So I don't know. As far as Riley is concerned, I mean, he came back. Matt Hankins is moving on. He's out of eligibility. I would think Riley would be a starter. The coaching staff seems to really like him, and I like him, but I do think they've got some good corners in waiting in Jamari Harris and Terry Roberts and a couple of guys that they grabbed in this recruiting class. But certainly Goodson, I would say, I just assume that, Mark, with running backs, that has to be a factor, especially for a guy who, again, is not real high on. He's not Breece Hall as far as an NFL talent. So I would think, and he had 1,100 yards. So he's probably looking at it and saying, what more can I do to improve my draft stock at this point?
And to your point, 256 carries, and that's with opting out of a bowl game. That's a lot of wear and tear. I would like to run the numbers to see where that ranks in college football. I got to think that's a top 10 or 12 number in college football in regards to rushing attempts. That's quite a few carries. Kerner, to your point about being a sure tackler, 88 tackles. That's quite a bit, third on the team.
Yeah. And again, I don't know where Kerner's. I haven't looked at his draft stock, but I would just think he's got a good shot of being drafted. Again, he's undersized. I get it. I don't know where he's going to test out at the combine, but Just the Iowa's, it's kind of like Iowa tight ends. Like unless you're really not playing extensively at Iowa, you're probably going to get a late flyer. And I would say that about most defensive backs at Iowa. Most of them get a good shot. I mean, if you look at recent starters, I don't know the last starting corner who didn't at least get a reasonable shot and get drafted. I'm thinking certainly Hankins, I think, has a chance. Ojemudia is playing for the Broncos. Obviously, Desmond King, Josh Jackson. You can go down the list. So safety maybe not quite as prominent as corner, but again, they've had those success stories. So I wish him the best, and it helps Iowa again. Anybody who wants to root against a guy, I see fans all the time who are upset by guys like Goodson leaving and opting out of the bowl game. You can believe that that's not the right decision if you want, but the bottom line is there's no reason to root against a guy like Tyler Goodson. Iowa needs a success story at running back. I've been saying that for years because they haven't had one since Sean Green. And that's one of the more, and again, we can probably talk about this sometime during the offseason. I know we're kind of entering the offseason now, but the fact that Iowa is known across the country for running the football, and we know that the numbers don't bear out that they're a dominant run team. But a big part of why we want to talk about zone blocking schemes and whatnot,